What's up, everybody? This is Jeremiah, and today I'm gonna be reacting to the video "Tipping is Everything Wrong with Society" by Moon. Now, tipping it's kind of been a problem though, because let's say you're paying like $10 for something, and yet and it has to be like, I don't know if it's give you tips or something like that, but actually for a tipping, like, nah, man, like, oh, the person who's delivering your food, like you order it on DoorDash or Grubhub, like, kind of like pressing you. Thank God it's never happened to me. But like, I've seen some clips that people have been pressing other people who order the food, or they're not giving a tip. I'm like, yo, tips is mad expensive now. Like a 2, 3, 4 tips, man. It just ain't worth it, bro. It just ain't worth it. That's all you want to do. Sometimes, sure, but all the time, yeah, that's not me, buddy. That's not me. But without further ado, let's react to the video.
Imagine you're broke. You've been working hard, but there's still a week until payday and you've got nothing left. Then you see some fast-growing apps offer advances on your next paycheck. If you make an account, they can give you a short-term loan to get by. Then they'll only collect when you next get paid without charging any interest. With over half of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, it sounds too good to be true. But these apps are reaching millions of new people and growing nearly 50% every year. So what's the catch? Well, it all revolved around tipping. Instead of charging interest, apps like Dave added a 15% tip to the bill when they came to collect. Despite claiming it was optional, this fee was added without the knowledge of lots of their customers. If they didn't challenge it when they saw it later on, it was almost impossible to get it back. These tips didn't go to any of the app's employees directly. This isn't some service worker who's struggling to make ends meet getting a few extra bucks for a job well done. This was a multi-billion-dollar financial company asking its struggling customers for tips. But it gets even worse. On top of that hidden fee, Dave would show his customers this screen. You're probably already familiar with this kind of menu from the swivel tablet at your local coffee shop, but this one's even worse. As you decrease the tip percentage, the amount of food on the little girl's plate shrinks. Eventually, she's left with an empty plate for a 0% tip. The implication is clearly that the service wouldn't even exist without tips. By not tipping, you're both taking away food from starving kids while also closing the door behind you for people who might need the same thing one day. Of course, it was all smoke and mirrors. As a later FTC investigation revealed, a tiny fraction of each tip actually went to charity. The rest went straight to the corporation, as Dave hoovered up nearly $150 million in tips from 2022 to mid-2024. That was when the FTC forced them to switch to a fee-based system. It's
Thank
insane
God.
that this could even happen.
That's crazy. So you're telling me that you marketed your tippings as, oh, if you don't tip, you're starving children around the world, and then when the people actually tip you guys, you don't, the little amount, tiny amount, as he said, tiny amount tiny amount goes to the actual kids in need, while majority, like, it's like a 95%, 95 to 5% goes to the actual people who actually need it for food and stuff like that, and the 95 we just keep to ourselves. Man,
The fact that it did points to a massive problem in America that nobody wants to talk about: tipping culture. Through a combination of social pressure, pre-allocated service charges, and hidden fees, the average American spends nearly $500 every year on
500 a year in tips. Oh, oh my goodness, man. Americans are spending $500 a year on tips. Reluctantly, study finds Gen Z and millennial customers feel more pressure to tip. Bro, as consumers continue to deal with elevated levels of inflation, their tipping habits also appear to be feeling the impact of tipflation. Oh, I know. Even around the world, if you tip someone that's not from America, like if you go to some place around the world, I don't know where, but and if you tip, it's considered as disrespectful. It's legitly considered as disrespectful if you tip them. But here in America, you don't tip, it's suddenly a problem, bro. I know if you tipping, fine, like tipping once in a while, sure, why not? But tipping every single time you order something, yeah, no, bro. Or every single time you order food, yeah. No. That's not gonna be me. Like, if I do some little gesture tip like that, sure, why not? You know, here's some $20, $50. $50 is crazy though. 20, 15, yeah, sure, why not? But consistently every single time you order food or go to a restaurant, like, bro, then that's just asking man much. Especially if you gotta pay on the bill too. Especially if you're paying the bill that you like, you're paying the bill like you ordered. Oh,
tips alone. It's a large amount by itself, but that's the average taken from the whole of the country. In the biggest
average.
cities, tipping is completely out of hand.
Well, first of all, she should be that should be a red spot there around New York, right there. That she kind of missed. Just saying.
If you aren't careful, the average day in an American city can drain you dry. First, there's the morning coffee. Lots of chains have swapped the voluntary tip jar for the tablets instead.
Here's the secret to getting better ChatGPT results. Ventrilo is a Chrome extension that helps you write smarter
That's an extra $1 or $2. Then if you ever take an Uber or taxi, there's another few dollars on the tip. Lots of lunch places now ask for tips too, even if it's pretty much self-service. If you tip, then that's another $5 to $10. Another Uber, another coffee, another few dollars for each. Maybe you order dinner and the delivery driver will be expecting a tip. If you go to a bar in the evening, then that adds up massively too. A couple bucks for each drink and you can easily spend far more than you ever intended. And soon enough, you're spending hundreds of dollars each month just on tips. And the worst thing is, this has really only happened in the past decade, and it's speeding up exponentially. Below, or scan the QR code on screen to start earning today. Carried along by contactless payments and corporate pressure, America's toxic tipping culture is going international. For most of the world, tipping used to be an optional bonus, something you'd give for extra good service. Even in the US, where this all began, tipping was only customary for some jobs. Waiters, bar staff, and some other service professionals relied on tips because of a lower minimum wage. When it came to getting a meal, a drink, a haircut, or a ride, you were generally expected to tip. In lots of states, it was just cultural. Someone working at McDonald's might make the same minimum wage that a waiter would make, but you'd expect less from a fast food worker and they wouldn't get a tip because of it. For some jobs, it was just different. And it tells us that tipping culture in the best of cases is directly linked to the quality of service. Even if it's culturally expected, it should still be proportional. If your waiter does a better job than average or you've known your barber for years, you might give them a little extra. When the service is poor or non-existent though, you aren't expected to still tip 20%. For most of the world, this was how it worked for decades. Some cultures like Japan frown upon tipping entirely. In lots of ways, it's
other countries, like Japan obviously, other countries, if you tip, it's considered as disrespectful. Legitly considered as disrespectful.
It's incredibly freeing. They don't have to worry about making sure people are paid enough, they're never guilt-tripped, they don't feel that frustration of having to give more money away, and they never have to think about when it's appropriate to tip or tipping the right amount. And so it boggles the mind then how we ended up with the tipping culture of today. Just take a look at this video of a DoorDash driver stealing a customer's food after they had the nerve to only tip $8.
I drove 40 minutes and it was extremely far and I got it to you early. I think you need to adjust your tip.
If you don't drop my food and leave, no, you're complaining over an $8 tip. Are you serious right now? You're complaining over an $8 tip. I think you need to adjust your tip and make it right. Shut up and go. Oh, I know this is not all of them, but some of them, yo. Be grateful that that person even tipped you. Be grateful. Be grateful. Complaining over an $8 tip. Are you mad? Be grateful that you got a tip overall. Bro.
Make it right. You gave an $8 tip.
I'll take the $8 tip.
What the hell are you looking for? I gave an $8.
Okay, I'm gonna bring the food back. I'm gonna bring the food back.
Yo, God forbid this happens. If I order food, right, and then I tipped, and the person proceeds to complain about the tip I gave and bring the food back on site, I'm rushing, I'm dropping. If I'm playing a game, I'm dropping everything, running downstairs, and we're gonna have a beef. We're gonna have a 1v1. We're going to have a one-on-one because ain't no way you're telling me that you're gonna bring my food back to the place because you got an $8 tip, or you got a low amount tip. Oh. Sure.
Okay.
So where did this sense of entitlement come from? Well, you could just explain this as some people are just entitled, but in fact the problem goes way deeper than that. While some people are just awful, others are being manipulated, and for the most part the people working cannot be blamed for this, as American tipping culture has seemingly turned the employee against
Angry restaurant owner threatens to slap the out of customer who did.
the customer in the worst way possible, and now it's just leaking into the rest of the server's economy. This began in a system that lots of states used to exploit low-paid employees. In Texas or North Carolina, for example, wages can be as low as $2.13 an hour, the national minimum tipped wage. As long as employees get at least $20 in tips per month, it's legal to pay them this tiny fraction of the living wage. With jobs few and far between, some people would take
Stats. We're hiring $2 at starting at. Oh my gosh, what is that? What restaurant or business is that? Paying $2 per hour? Yo. What? 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 8 hours, right? Two. Oh, I gotta do the math. Friend. I'm sorry. I gotta do the math. Gots to do the math. So. Not okay. 8. Okay, 8 hours. $2 per hour. Okay, so that's. Shoot. So 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 8 hours. So 2 times 8. That's 16. And you do that for $16 every single day for the 5 weeks. So that's 16 times the 40. No. Actually, I can't do the math properly. Whoever understands what this is, please drop in, do the math in the comments, please.
these kinds of jobs, hoping that the tips will cover the difference. Tipping in these states was technically optional, but in effect, it was mandatory. If you personally didn't tip, then you were messing with your waiter's livelihood. You were treading on the working class. If they didn't make tips, their wage wouldn't even cover the tax on their paycheck. Add another cost and they were paying to work, all because you didn't tip. This system is exploitative at best, and it only benefits the owners. The customer is then put in a position where their optional tip is the only part of the bill that actually goes to the person they see. Meanwhile, the server is at the mercy of each individual customer. Relying solely on tips means if the customers are frugal and don't want to spend an extra 20% all the time, then the people working may never actually make enough money to live. Luckily for the rest of the world, this was never such a big problem. When restaurants and other businesses actually pay a living wage regardless of tips, service staff could easily make a good living. In fact, before rents and the cost of living went sky high, people could support entire families off of the system. But it wasn't going to stay like this forever. Over the 2010s, tipping culture began to expand in the US. It began with waiters, barbers, and other people who had been traditionally tipped for decades, but it soon expanded to coffee shops, fast food places, takeout shops, and even grocery stores. Now it's coming to countries like the UK. Tipping culture used to just be reserved to a few specific jobs in the UK. People happily tip waiters or hairdressers, and traditionally people even gave a postman a bonus at Christmas. But now in London, you can barely buy a packet of gum without being asked for a tip or a charity donation or both. So why did this happen? Well, in large part it was thanks to the new marketing practice called price partitioning.
What's up, everybody? Enjoying the video? That's great. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so when you know I upload another video. Also, tune into the live streams. We're live on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. So pull up on either one of them that seems fit for you. Without further ado, let's get back into the video.
It's a fairly simple technique on the face of it. Instead of just charging one price for the whole product or service, companies found out they could charge more if they broke it down into one base rate along with several added fees. Lots of companies have used this model to great success along with a mixed reception from the public. Ryanair became one of the largest airlines in Europe in large part thanks to this pricing model. As most airlines used to charge their customers a flat rate. Flying from Amsterdam to London, that'll cost $100, and Ryanair changed that. They both undercut the competition while also cutting up the cost just to make it seem even cheaper. Instead of $100, they'll probably advertise a price of $40 instead. But of course, don't forget an extra charge for checking your bag into the hold, a charge for the seats you'll have on the plane, or even a mandatory charge for just using the physical check-in desk. Ryanair's infamously abused these hidden fees, but they still give people a cheaper option overall, so so they grew incredibly quickly. Other companies do price partitioning, but they don't bother with even trying to reduce their prices. Ticketmaster is one of the worst offenders for this. They'll add service charges, booking fees, tons of hidden costs so that by the time you actually pay, you're paying an average of 25% on top of the original price. The reason for this is that we're simple creatures. Our brains see a price of $50 and we assume it costs more than $40 plus a 20% extra fee with $2 service charges on top. Sure, if you think about it, you'll probably realize what costs more, but at first glance, the bigger number just seems like more. The end result for tipping is that customers actually perceive a menu with a combined price as more expensive than one with a lower price, but with an added gratuity fee on the bill. Studies have shown that this effect is made worse when people are paying for hedonistic purchases. When people are paying for something they don't necessarily need, they feel slightly guilty. Maybe they feel like they're wasting their money, or they think they're making someone else do something they don't want to do. This makes them even more likely to undervalue the bill at the end if it's been split up. Their brain will want to see it as less than it really is, which
Please note that an 18% gratuity has been added to your check. Please feel free to increase, decrease, or remove the gratuity. This gratuity will be paid to serve, is voluntarily and added for convenience. Wow.
means they'll be more likely to accept added charges like a tip. You can see this in action with different things that have become tipped in American culture. When it comes to indulgences like takeout food, taxi rides, and ice cream, they often ask you for a tip, but you wouldn't expect to tip your plumber or your mechanic. The key is that the companies selling these kinds of products found out they could easily ask for tips. A lot of the time they'd get them, it's just free money, of course they'll ask for it. The fact that it went to the employees alone didn't really matter because they can use tips to manipulate the system. Imagine you're running an ice cream shop and you install card machines that ask for a tip before taking payment. Because it's all digital, you can figure out how much the average person tips. Add that onto the wages you're paying your employees and now you've got your new figure for their actual wage. When the time comes for raises, you might not have to bother for a year or two. The annoying tablet means they get more tips and their take-home pay went up. Even though you never really take your employees' tips, you end up taking all the profit after a year or so. Meanwhile, the consumer pays more and the employees get the same amount they would have gotten anyway. So why didn't this happen before? Any business owner could have done pretty much the same thing 50 years ago if they wanted to. From a profit-orientated perspective, it's a complete no-brainer. Well, the answer is the technology. Businesses only recently got the chance to sneak tipping into any business interaction they liked. Try the same tactics without a touchscreen card reader and you'll see. The ice cream shop owner would have to get their employees to actually ask each customer for a tip all day. It just wouldn't work and most people wouldn't put up with it, both the customers and the employees. The best you could get would be a tip jar and a sign, but most people just ignore those if they even notice them. Today a tablet or card reader can do it all. The employee doesn't have to awkwardly ask. Meanwhile, it seamlessly integrates asking for a tip as part of the payment process. You can even manipulate the customer with this new technology. Instead of having a yes or no option, you can just give them a few different percentages. Before this used to be 10, 15 and 20%, but just like prices, it keeps inflating. In some cities in America, 20% is often the smallest number they give you. Don't want a tip? It's optional of course, but you can make it a pretty awkward option for your customers. The employee will know where 0% is on the options menu and they'll know which one you tapped. You can even make people specifically have to tap custom, then make them type in 0% in front of everyone. It all serves to humiliate and guilt trip the customer if they don't want a tip.
That's not fair.
Meanwhile, the employee is pitted against the customer. If the tip makes up a large percentage of their earnings, they're now under financial pressure. It's now in their interest to help pressure the customer so that they can make their living. Contactless payments is also to blame. It's so far from the experience of actually handing over money that $1 or $2 extra makes no difference whatsoever. You'll just get the same beep sound. People might rationally know that they're paying extra, but in that moment, it's a psychological decision between an awkward situation and a smooth experience. Corporations won't care about that. They're making too much money from the wages they don't have to pay. Even if it sours the experience for people, they slowly lose their customers, it isn't obvious why it's happening when you're just looking at the numbers. In fact, it might make them squeeze their remaining customers even more. So with the introduction of these kinds of payment systems, lots of existing businesses could just adopt them. They could use them to keep their pay low because of the tips, then enjoy the profits. As it becomes more common, more businesses caught on and it spread even further. American chains had success in bringing it into other countries as well across the 2010s. The more Americanized the city, the easier it was. That's why places like London are almost as bad as America now. Soon enough, the homegrown businesses started to catch on as well and it just became normal. This is just one aspect of tipping culture, and it shows how it can be used to increase profits on a massive scale. Other companies took it even further though. While big cities transitioned to a cash-free economy, tech companies like Uber and DoorDash also found out how useful tipping culture could be to their bottom line. In most of the West, Uber drivers and DoorDash delivery drivers aren't technically employees. Legally, they're self-employed contractors, members of the gig economy. They get paid a flat rate per delivery, increasing slightly based on demand, distance, and other factors determined by algorithms. Even during the lockdowns when these apps were so popular, the basic business model wasn't profitable at all. So after the venture capital funding ran out, the tech companies began to squeeze as much money out of the apps as possible. That means taking money from the restaurants while also shorting the delivery drivers. They also mark up prices in the apps while also adding tons of extra fees as a form of price partitioning. But the most important part of their strategy is the tipping culture they've created. These companies have been sure to make it a massive part of their system. First, they encourage people to tip before they've actually received the food. They make it seem normal, even expected. In the app, there are colorful graphics when you add a tip. Sometimes not adding a tip can even put you at the back of the queue. Just check out this video of all the orders backing up. DoorDash is happy to send out the order, take the payment, and let the restaurant start making it. But they won't pay the drivers enough to make driving 4 miles worth it. They're smart about it too. Their focus on tipping culture within the process means that the frustration from the drivers is put onto the customers. The implication is that if they don't make enough, it's because they aren't getting tipped enough. So drivers get really angry if they're spending tons of money on gas, maintenance, and other costs just to get almost nothing from the actual delivery. The frustration then bubbles over and people act out, and sometimes they turn that frustration onto the customer.
Nice house for a $5 tip.
You're welcome.
DoorDash reacted to this clip by banning the driver and calling it a problem solved. Sure, the guy was clearly entitled, but it was DoorDash's greed that caused the whole problem of low pay in the first place. Tipping culture pits the workers and the customers against each other. It puts the focus on paying a fair wage onto the consumer when really it's the company's responsibility. But when the delivery drivers are angry at the consumers and vice versa, it takes the emphasis off of the company. The technological advances that created the delivery app system also made the life of a delivery driver far worse. Before, they were mostly actual employees. Outside of certain US states, they had a proper minimum wage. Any tips were a bonus on top of that. But now America's predatory tipping culture has replaced all of this. Now they have to grind as much as possible to ensure they make enough to get by. The only way to win is not to play. However hard they pressure you, tipping will always be optional. And it isn't even immoral or wrong to not tip in these kinds of exploitative scenarios. In fact, tipping might make one person's life feel a little bit better, but it also fuels the whole exploitation machine as well. Which all goes back to the very first example we showed you, the banking app Dave. Tipping culture is how they made their millions, duping people into thinking they were actually helping someone. Dave's CEO Jason Wilk was aware of all of this. It's what made his company worth billions of dollars. Through a mixture of deception and manipulation, they pushed tipping culture to its absolute limits. And while the FTC might have put a stop to some of their shady practices, they aren't going to punish them at all really, or even take back any substantial amount of the money they squeezed out of their desperate customers. And it's only going to get worse if people don't draw their own personal lines in the sand. If you're having a meal out or getting a haircut, it's probably a good idea to tip. But buying into the idea that it's mandatory or supporting businesses that make it seem that way only makes things worse. So make your own decision and don't let them make it for you.
Yep. Yeah, shout out to Moon for this video, man. Yeah, this tipping culture, yeah. When he said, like, your barber, your hair salon, non-stylist, something like that, your waiters, yeah, sure, tip them, yeah, man, like, for real. But like when these like what he said, what he explained by these companies want the consumer and the delivery people against each other, yeah, it's crazy. It really is crazy. And then you got some entitled delivery drivers, as we saw, complaining for $5, $8 tip and then ruining the food. I'm like, bro, at that point, bro, these companies already won. Like, no joke. They're winning. They're winning right now. So like, it's just, yeah, you gotta choose if you want to tip or not tip. To be honest with you, you gotta choose. You gotta be bold enough to just choose to say, no, I'm not gonna tip you. Again, for the barber, tip your barber, because he has your life inside. Like, he has your life he has your life in his hands for like the next 2 weeks or so. But yeah, but barbers, waiters, hair salon stylists, those types of people should. that's a personal relationship. Not waiters like that. If you know a waiter, like, family, or you've seen them somewhere. But barber, long time knowing the person, yeah, sure. But like these food delivery drivers, bro, it's if you want to tip, tip. If you don't want to tip, you don't want to tip. Simple as that. But again, shout outs to Moon for the video, man. The original video link in the description down below. Follow me on all the socials. All being said, it's Jeremiah. God bless you. Jesus loves you. Repent and be saved. I'm out. Peace.